Good evening to everyone, and I would like to welcome Saturday night episode to the Stand Up for Truth and Justice. I would like to welcome you by the greeting of Islamic system. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah shower His peace, mercy, and blessing upon you all. Dear brothers and sisters, I'm going to share some information regarding the Islam is the real civilization. So I will share some information. You can listen and think about it, and maybe you can uh, make comment, or if you have questions, how do you think about this information? And again, and end of the episode, this is your choice to like and dislike. If you like, please subscribe the channel and share to your friends and family. And if you don't like it, your choice, and maybe you can try. If you don't like it, still you can try to understand and see whether you can get anything from this information. So is Islam knows only two kinds of societies, the Islamic and the ignorant society. The Islamic society is that which follows Islam in belief and ways of worship, in law and organization, in morals and manners. And the ignorant society is that which does not follow Islam and which neither the Islamic belief or concept nor Islamic values or standards, Islamic laws and regulation, or Islamic moral and manners are cared for. The Islamic society is not one in which people call themselves Muslims, but in which the Islamic law has no status, even though prayer, fasting, and Hajj are regularly observed. And the Islamic society is not one in which people invent their own version of Islam other than what Allah and His Messenger, peace be upon him, have prescribed and explained, and call it, for example, progressive Islam. The ignorant society appears in various forms, all of them ignorant of the divine guidance. Sometimes it takes the form of a society in which belief in Allah Almighty is denied and human history is explained in terms of intellectual materialism, and scientific socialism becomes its system. Sometimes it appears in the form of a society in which Allah's existence is not denied, but His domain is restricted to the heavens and His rule on earth is suspended. Neither the divine law nor the values prescribed by Allah Almighty and ordained by Him as, as eternal and invariable find any place in this scheme of life. In this society, people are permitted to go to mosques, churches, and synagogues, yet it does not tolerate people's demanding that the divine law of Allah be applied in their daily affairs. Thus, such a society denies or suspends Allah's sovereignty on earth, while Allah says plainly, وَهُوَ الَّذِي فِي السَّمَاءِ إِلَهٌ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَهٌ وَهُوَ الْحَكِيمُ الْعَلِيمُ. And it is He, Allah, who is the only deity in the heavens and on the earth, the only deity, and He is the wise and knowing. Because of this behavior, such a society does not follow the religion of Islam as defined by Him. إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ أَمَرَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Legislation is not but for Allah alone. He has commanded that you worship not accept Him. This is the correct religion, but most of the people do not know. Because of this, such a society is to be counted among ignorant societies, although it may proclaim belief in Allah Almighty and permit people to observe their devotion in mosques, churches, and synagogues. The Islamic society is, by its very nature, the only civilized society, and the ignorant societies in all their various forms are backward societies. It is necessary to elucidate this great truth. Now, the question is, what is the meaning of civilization? Let us try to explain it. When in a society the sovereignty belongs to Allah alone, expressed in its obedience to the divine law, only then in every person in that society, free from servitude to others, and only then does he taste true freedom. This alone is human civilization, as the basis of a human civilization is the complete and true freedom of every person and the full dignity of every individual of the society. On the other hand, in a society in which some people are lords who legislate and some other are slaves who obey them, then there is no freedom in the real sense, no dignity for each and every individual. It is necessary that we clarify the point that legislation is not limited only to legal matters. Some people assign these narrow meanings to the divine law. The fact is that attitude, the way of living, the values, criteria, habits, and traditions are all legislated and affect people. If a particular group of people forgets all these chains. All these chains and imprisons other in them, this will not be a free society. In such a society, some people have the position of authority, while others are subservient to them. Hence, this society will be backward and in Islamic terminology is called a ignorant society. Only the Islamic society is unique in this respect, in that the authority belongs to Allah alone, and man, cutting off his chains of servitude to other human beings, enter into the service of Allah Almighty, and thus attain that real and complete freedom which is the focus of human civilization. In this society, the dignity and honor of men are respected according to what Allah Almighty has prescribed. He becomes the representative of Allah on earth, and his position becomes even higher than that of the angels. In a society which bases its foundation on the concept, belief, and way of life which all originate from the one God, man's dignity is respected to the highest degree, and no one is a slave to another. And as they are in societies in which the concept, beliefs, and way of life originate from human masters. In the former society, man's highest characteristic, those of the spirit and mind, are reflected, while in a society in which human relationships are based on color, race, or nation, or similar criteria, this relationship become a chain for human thought and prevent man's noble characteristics from coming to fore. A person remains human regardless of what color, race, and nation he belongs to, but he cannot be called human if he is devoid of spirits and reason. Furthermore, he is able to change his beliefs, concepts, and attitude towards life, but he is incapable of changing his color and race, nor can he decide in what place or nation to be born. Thus it is clear that only such a society is civilized in which human associations are based on free choice, and that society is backward in which the basis of association is something other than free choice. In Islamic terminology, it is a ignorant society. Only Islam has the distinction of basing the fundamental binding relationship in its society on belief, and on the basis of this belief, black and white, red and yellow, Arabs and Greeks, Persians or Africans, and all nations which inhabit the earth become one community. In this society, Allah is the Lord and only He is worshipped. The most honorable is the one who is noblest in character, and all individuals are equally subject to a law which is not man made but made by their Creator. A society which places the highest value on the humanity of man and honors the noble human characteristics is truly civilized. If materialism, no matter in what form, is given the highest value, whether it be in the form of a theory or such as in the Marxist interpretation of history or in the form of material production, as is the case with the United States and European countries, and all other human values are sacrificed at its altar, then such a society is a backward one, or in Islamic terminology, is a ignorant society. The civilized society, that is Islamic society, does not downgrade matter either in theory or in the form of material production, as it considers the universe in which we live, by which we are influenced, and which we influence, to be made of matter, and it considers material production to be the backbone of the vicegerency of Allah on earth. However, in the Islamic society, material comfort are not made into the highest value at the expense of human characteristics, freedom and honor, family and its obligation, morals and values, and so on, as is the case in ignorant societies. If a society based on human values, human morals, and this remains dominant in it, then the society will be civilized. Human values, human moral are not something mysterious and indefinable, nor are they progressive and changeable, having no roots and stability, as is claimed by the exponent of the materialistic interpretation of history or of a scientific socialism. They are the values and the moral which develop those characteristics in a human being which distinguish him from the animals and which emphasize those aspects of his personality which raise him above the animals. These are not mass values. And moral which develop and emphasize those characteristics in man which are common with the animals. When the question is viewed in this manner, a fixed and well-defined line of the progressive defined line of the separation is obtained, which cannot be erased by the incessant attempt of the progressives and the scientific societies to erase it. According to this view, moral standards are not determined by the environment and the changing condition. Rather, they are fixed criteria above and beyond the differ, difference in environment. One cannot say that some moral values are agricultural and others industrial. Some are capitalist and some other socialistic. Some are bourgeoisie, bourgeoisie and others proletarian. Proletarian. Here the standards of morality are independent of the environment, the economic status, and the stage of development of a society. These are nothing but superficial variation. Beyond all this, we arrived at human values and moral and at animalistics value and morals. This being the correct separation, or in Islamic terminology, Islamic values and moral and ignorant values and morals. Indeed, Islam establishes the values and moral which are human, those which develop characteristics in a human being which distinguish him from the animals. In whatever society Islam is dominant, whether it is an agricultural or industrial society, nomadic and personal or urban or settled, poor or rich, it implants these human values and morals, nurtures them and strengthens them. It develops human characteristics progressively and guard against degeneration towards animalism. The direction of the line which separates human values from animal-like characteristics is upward, but if this direction is reversed, then in spite of all materials progress, the civilization will be backward, degenerative, and ignorance. If the family is the basis of the society, the basis of the family is the division of labor between husband and wife, and the upbringing of children is the most important function of the family, then such a society is indeed civilized. In the Islamic system of life, this kind of a family provides the environment under which human values and morals develop and grow in the new generations. These values and morals cannot exist apart from the family unit. If, on the other hand, free sexual relationships and illegitimate children become the basis of a society, and if the relationship between men and women is based on lust, passion, and impulse, and the division of work is not based on family responsibility and natural gift, if women's role is merely to be attractive, sexy, or flirtatious, and if the woman is freed from her basic responsibility of bringing up children, and if on her own or under social demand she prefers to become a hostess or a stewardess in a hotel or ship or air company, thus spending her ability for material productivity rather than in the training of human beings, because material production is considered to be more important, more valuable, and more honorable than the development of human character, then such a civilization is backward from the human point of view or ignorance in the Islamic terminology. The family system and the relationship between the sexes determine the whole character of a society and whether it is backward or civilized, ignorant or Islamic. Those societies which give ascendance to physical desires and animalistic morals cannot be considered civilized, no matter how much progress they may make in industry or science. This is the only measure which does not err in the gauging true human progress. In all modern ignorant society, the meaning of morality is limited to such an extent that all those aspects which distinguish man from animal are considered beyond its sphere. In these societies, illegitimate sexual relationships, even homosexuality, are not considered immoral. The meaning of ethics is limited to economic affairs or sometimes to political affairs which fall into the category of government interest. For example, the scandal of Christian killer and the British minister Profumo was not considered serious to British society because of its sexual aspect. It was condemnable because Christian killer was also involved with a naval attaché of the Russian embassy, and thus her association with a cabinet minister lied before the British Parliament. Similar scandal come to light in the American Senate. Englishmen and Americans who get involved in such spying scandals usually take refuge in Russia. These affairs are not considered immoral because of sexual deviation, but because of the danger to state secrets. Among ignorant societies, writers, journalists, and editors advise both married and unmarried people that free sexual relationships are not immoral. However, it is immoral if a boy uses his partner or a girl uses her partner for sex while feeling no love in his or her heart. It is bad if a woman continues to guard her chastity while her love for her husband has vanished. It is admirable if she finds another lover. Dozens of stories are written about this theme. Many newspaper editorials, articles, cartoons, series, and light columns all invite to this way of life. From the point of view human progress, all such societies are not civilized but backward. The line of human progress goes upward from animal desires towards higher values. To control the animal's desires, a progressive society lays down the foundation of a family system in which human desire find satisfaction, as well as providing for the further generation to be brought up in such a manner that it will continue the human civilization in which human characteristics flower to their full bloom. Obviously, a society which intends to control the animal characteristics while providing full opportunities for the development and perfection of human characteristics requires strong safeguards for the peace and stability of the family so that it may perform its basic task free from the influence of impulsive passion. On the other hand, if in the society immoral teaching and poisonous suggestions are rampant and sexual activity is considered outside the sphere of morality, then in that society the humanity of man can hardly find a place to develop. Thus, only Islamic values and moral Islamic teachings and safeguards are worthy of mankind. And from this unchanging and the true measure of human progress, Islam is the real civilization and Islamic society is truly civilized. Lastly, when man established the representation of Allah Almighty on earth in all respect by dedicating himself to the service of Allah Almighty and freeing himself from servitude to others, by establishing the system of life prescribed by Allah Almighty and rejecting all other system, by arranging his life according to the divine law of Allah and giving up all other laws, by adopting the values and standards of morality which are pleasing to Allah Almighty and rejecting all other standards. And after this, when he investigates the laws governing the universe and uses them for the benefit of all mankind, applies, imposed on him by Allah as his vicegerent on earth, unearth the treasures and resources of food and raw materials for industries, uses his technical and professional knowledge for the development of various kinds of industries, doing all these things as a God-fearing person and as a representative of Allah. And when his attitude towards the materials and moral aspect of life is infused with this spirit, only then does man become completely civilized and the society reach the height of civilization. In Islam, mere material invention are not considered as civilization, as a ignorant society can also have material prosperity in many places in the Quran. Now, Allah Almighty has described societies of this kind which have attained material prosperity while remaining ignorant. أتبنون بكل ريح آية تعبثون. Hud said to his people, do you construct on every elevation a sign amusing yourselves? وَتَتَّخِذُونَ مَصَانِعَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَخْلُدُونَ. and take for yourself construction like, as for example, palaces and fortress, that you might abide certainly eternally. وَإِذَا بَطَشْتُمْ جَبَّارٍ, and when you strike as tyrant. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونْ, then fear Allah and obey me. وَاتَّقُوا الَّذِي أَمَدَّكُمْ بِمَا تَعْلَمُونَ, and fear He who provided you with that which you know. أَمَدَّكُمْ بِأَنْعَامٍ وَبَنِينَ, provided you with grazing livestock and children. وَجَنَّاتٍ وَعُيُونٍ, and gardens and springs. إِنِّي أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابَ يَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ, indeed I fear for you the punishment of a terrible day. أَتُتْرَكُونَ فِي مَا هَاهُنَا آمِنِينَ, Salih said to his people, will you be left in what is here, secure from death? في جنات وعيون, within gardens and springs. وزروع ونخل طلعها حضيم, and field of crops and palm trees with softened fruits. وتنحتون من الجبال بيوتا فارهين, and you carve out the mountain homes with skill. فاتقوا الله وأطيعوا, so fear Allah and obey me. ولا تطيعوا أمر مسرفين, and do not obey the order of the transgressor. الذين يفسدون في الأرض ولا يصلحون, who cause corruption in the land and do not amend. فلما نسوا ما ذكروا به فتحنا عليهم أبواب كل شيء حتى إذا فرحوا بما أوتوا أخذناهم بغتة فإذا هم مبلسون. So when they forgot that by which they had been reminded, we opened to them the doors of every good things until when they rejoiced in that which they were given, we seized them suddenly, and they were then in despair. فقطع دابر القوم الذين ظلموا والحمد لله رب العالمين. So the people that committed wrong were eliminated, and praise to Allah, Lord of the world. إنما مثل الحياة الدنيا كماء إن أنزلناه من السماء فاختلط به نبات الأرض مما يأكل الناس والأنعام حتى إذا أخذت الأرض زخرفها وزينت وظن أهلها أنهم قادرون عليها أتاها أمرنا ليلا أو نهارا فجعلناها حصيدا كأن لم تغن بالأمس كذلك نفصل الآيات لقوم يتفكرون. The example of this worldly life is but like rain, which we send down from the sky, that the plants of the earth absorb, those from which men and livestock eat, until when the earth has taken on its adornment and is beautified, and its people supposed that they have capability over it, there comes to it our command by night or by day, and we make it as a harvest, utterly destroyed, as if it had not flourished yesterday. Thus do we explain in details the sign of sign for a people who give thought. But as we have said earlier, Islam does not look with contempt on material progress and material invention. In fact, it considered them when used under the divine system of life as Allah's gift. In the Quran, we find that Allah promises His bounty to people when they are obedient to Him. فقلت استغفروا ربكم إنه كان غفارا. Nuh said his people, ask forgiveness of your Lord. Indeed, He is ever a perpetual forgiver. يرسل السماء عليكم مدرارا. He will send rain from the sky upon you in continuing showers. ويمددكم بأموال وبنين ويجعل لكم جنات ويجعل لكم أنهارا, and give you increase in wealth and children, and provide for you garden, and provide for your rivers. ولو أن أهل القرى آمنوا واتقوا لفتحنا عليهم بركات من السماء والأرض ولكن كذبوا فأخذناهم بما كانوا يكسبون. And if only the people of the cities had believed and feared Allah, we would have opened the bestowed upon them blessing from the heavens and the earth, but they denied the messengers, so we seized them for what they were earning of blame for their sins. But the important thing is that foundation on which the industrial structure is built, and those values which bind a society and through which a society acquires the characteristics of human civilization. Since the basis of the Islamic society and the nature of its growth, which gave rise to its community, have a unique character, one cannot apply to it those theories which can explain the establishment and growth of ignorant societies. The Islamic society is born out of a movement, and this movement continues within it. It determines the places and position of individual in the community and then assigns them rules and responsibilities. The origin of this movement from which this community is born is outside the human sphere and outside this world. Its sources is a belief which has come from Allah Almighty to mankind and which gives them a particular concept of the universe, of life, of human history, of values and purposes, and which defines for them a way of life reflecting this concept. Thus, the initial impetus for the movement does not come from human minds or from the physical world, but as we have stated before, it comes from outside the earth and outside the human sphere, and this is the first distinctive feature of Islamic society and its organization. Indeed, the origin of this movement it is an element outside the sphere of man and outside the physical world. The element which comes into existence from Allah's will is not something expected by any human beings or taken into consideration by anyone. And in the beginning, no human endeavor enters into it. The divine element sows the seeds of Islamic movement and at the same time prepares the human being for action, prepares the one who believes in the faith which reaches to him from the divine source, and soon as this single individual believes in this faith, the Islamic community comes into existence. Potentially, these individuals does not remain satisfied at having this faith, but stand up to give its message. It is the nature of this faith that it is a virile and dynamic movement. The power which lights up this faith in this heart knows that it will not remain concealed but will come out into the open and will spread to others. When the number of believers reaches 3, then this faith tells them, now you are a community, a distinct Islamic community, distinct from that Jahili or ignorant society which does not live according to this belief or accept its basic premise. Now the Islamic society has come into existence actually. These 3 individuals increased to 10, the 10 to 100, and 100 to 1,000, and 1,000 increased to 12,000, and the Islamic society grows and becomes established. During the progress of this movement, a struggle would already have started. Within the Jahili society, on the one side is this newborn society which in its belief and concept, values and standards, existence and organization has separated itself from the Jahili society from which the Islamic society absorbs individuals. This movement from the moment of its inception until the growth and permanent existence of its society comes about and tests every individual and assigns him a position of responsibility according to his capacity as measured by Islamic balance and standard. The society automatically recognizes his capabilities and he does not need to come forward and announce his candidacy. In fact, his belief and the values to which he and his society subscribe compel him to keep himself concealed from the eyes of those who want to give him a responsible position. But the movement, which is a natural outgrowth of the Islamic beliefs and which is essence of Islamic society, does not let any individuals hide himself. Every individual of this society must move. There should be a movement in his belief, a movement in his blood, a movement in his community, and in the structure of his organic society. And as the ignorance is all around him, and its residual influence in his mind and in the minds of those around him, the struggle goes on and the jihad continues until the day of resurrection. The ups and downs through which the movement passes determine the position and activity of every individual in the movement and the organic body of this society is completed through the harmony between its individuals and their activities. This kind of beginning and this method of organization are two of the characteristics of the Islamic society which distinguish it from other societies in respect to its existence and its structure, its natures and its form, its system and method of regulating this system, making it a unique and separate entity. It cannot be understood by social theories alien, alien to it, nor can it be taught by methods foreign to its nature, nor can it be brought into existence by ways borrowed from other systems. According to our universe unvarying definition of civilization, the Islamic society is not just an entity of the past to be studied in history, but it is a demand of present and a hope of the future. Mankind can be dignified today or tomorrow by striving towards this noble civilization, by pulling itself out of the abyss of ignorance into which it is falling. This is true not only for the industrially and economically developed nation, but also for the backward nations. The value to which we referred above as human value were never attained by mankind except in the period of Islamic civilization. We also ought to remember that by the term Islamic civilization, we mean that civilization in which these values are found to the highest degree, and not a civilization which may make progress in industry, economics, and science, but in which human values are suppressed. These values are not idealistic but are practical values which can be attained through human effort by applying the teaching of Islam correctly. These values can be attained in any environment, whatever the level of industrial or scientific progress may be, as there is no contradiction. In fact, material prosperity and scientific progress are encouraged by the teaching of Islam as they pertain to man's role as the representative of Allah on earth. Similarly, it in countries which are industrially and scientifically backward, these values teach people not to remain just silent spectators but to strive for industrial and scientific progress. A civilization with these values can develop anywhere in any environment. However, the actual form it takes is not one, but depends on the conditions and environment existing in the society in which these values develop. The Islamic society, in its form and extent, and its way of living, is not fixed, historic entity, but its existence and its civilization are based on values which are fixed historical realities. The word historical used in this context only means that these values took concrete form in a particular period of human history. In fact, these values by their nature do not belong to any particular period. They are the truth which has come to man from the divine source, beyond the sphere of mankind and beyond the sphere of physical universe. The Islamic civilization can take various forms in its material and organizational structure, but the principles and values on which it is based are eternal and unchangeable. These are the worship of Allah alone, the foundation of human relationship on the beliefs in the oneness of Allah, the supremacy of the harmony, humanity of man over material things, the development of human values, and the control of animalistic desires, respect for the family, the assumption of being the representative of Allah Almighty on earth according to His guidance and instruction, and in all affairs of this basharancy, the rule of Allah's law and the way of life prescribed by Him. The forms of the Islamic civilization constructed on these fixed principles depend on actual conditions, are influenced by and change according to the stage of industrial, economic, and scientific progress. These forms are necessarily different and are a consequence of the fact that Islam possesses sufficient flexibility to enter into any system and mold that system according to its purposes. But this flexibility in the outward forms of Islamic civilization does not mean any flexibility in Islamic belief, which is the fountainhead of this civilization, nor is it to be considered as borrowed from outside, for it is the character of the religion. However, flexibility is not to be confused with fluidity. There is a great difference between these two. When Islam entered the central part of Africa, it clothed naked human beings, socialized them, brought them out of the deep recesses of isolation, and taught them the joy of work for exploring material resources. It brought them out of the narrow circle of tribes and clans into the vast cycle of Islamic community, and out of the worship of pagans gods into the worship of the creator of the world. If this is not civilization, then what is it? Thus, this civilization was for this environment, and it used the actual resources which were available. If Islam enters into some other environment, then its civilization will also take another form, but with values which are eternal based on the existing resources of the particular environment. Thus, the development of the civilization according to the method and manner of Islam does not depend on any particular level of industrial, economic, or scientific progress. Wherever this civilization is established, it will use all the resources, will develop them. If in a certain place these resources are non existent, then it will apply them and will provide the means for their growth and progress. But in all situations, it will be based on its immutable and eternal principles. And wherever such an Islamic society comes into existence, its particular character and its particular movement will also come into existence and will make it distinguished and distinct from all ignorant society. Sibghatallahi wa man ahsanu minallahi sibgha wa nahnu lahu abidun. And say the religion of Allah, and who is better than Allah is in ordaining religion, as we are worshipper of Him. Our is the religion of Allah, and who is better than Allah in ordaining religion? Are we worshippers of Him? So this is I have shared this information with you about the Islamic society. Islam is the real civilization. So I will leave it with you for your thinking and make up your own mind. So how to implement it in your daily life and how to get guidance and get influence in your daily life and get it better, get your private personal life better, get your family life better, get your social life better, and other aspect is better than where you are, and free from any other servitude to rather than Allah. May Allah give us ability to understand His civilization and follow it and make others to get civilized, and may Allah give us ability to understand it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah shower His peace and mercy and blessing upon you all to get guidance from His civilization and use it in a civilized manner. Good night.